Still at home now, there is a decrease of patients presenting with mild to severe cholera symptoms in Hammanskraal as compared to last week when the cholera outbreak was at its peak. Now, this is according to the Gauteng Emergency Medical Services team that is stationed at the makeshift clinic at Kanana Village in Hammanskraal. They attribute this sudden decline to residents heeding messages that encourage them to exercise safe hygiene. And despite this, the number of fatalities is now increased to 23 in Hammanskraal and 1 in the Free State province. Well, for the latest now, we're going to be joined by our reporter, Offense Stima, who's actually been following this story for us. Offense, thank you so much for joining us. We also hear now more news there that, of course, the death toll has just increased to 23. Do give us the latest and about what's going on there in Hammanskraal.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. Well, I can tell you that, the hive of activity that we saw actually, rolling out here at this particular makeshift clinic has actually dwindled down. The number of people that were actually reporting here coming to test as they were suspecting that maybe they might have a stomach bug that's related to cholera has actually dropped drastically. When we were speaking to some of the emergency personnel that are actually here at this particular clinic, they were also telling us that, there is a vehicle that would actually, traverse this particular area with a loud hailer, actually, trying to explain to the community about good hygiene practices and also urging them to actually boil their water. So the emergency personnel are actually telling us that, it seems the community is heeding that message where they no longer would just take the water and drink, especially after the tragic deaths that we've experienced. As you rightfully mentioned, the toll is now at 23 in Hammanskraal and 1 there in the province of Free State. So that's what's happening. It's quite positive, actually, what's transpiring. When we were speaking to some of the community members, they were also, quite relieved to hear that at least, the patients that were coming forward actually presenting with symptoms that are related to cholera, it's actually going down.
All right. And of course, Offense, the president had promised yesterday when he was leaving, of course, with the delegation from the NWC in the Northwest, he said he was going to visit Hammanskraal. Has he done so?
Not quite. We were in contact with his spokesperson, Mr. Vincent Magwenya, earlier on, and he confirmed that the president was en route to Nigeria. They actually left the Waterkloof Air Force Base at around 1:30 this afternoon. So definitely he did make that promise that he will be visiting the community of Hammanskraal, but it's definitely not today. And in fact, when he mentioned that, it was during some sort of a Q&A with the people of the media who actually raised this issue to say that there is this outbreak happening. When is he going to visit? And he actually responded by saying that he will definitely visit Hammanskraal, but he did not give specific details as to on which date he will definitely be visiting. And we know that, according to his program, he still needs to go to Parliament when he returns next week, and then he might be available probably, and this is speculation, probably around Friday. Maybe that could be a day where we could see the president himself actually coming to, check out what is actually transpiring here in Hammanskraal.
And Offense, there were some families of the deceased that were appealing for assistance, of course, with the burials to the relevant authorities, the health department or government. Have you heard anything in relation to such, either from any of the government officials that are there?
Normally this would be the prerogative of the social development department, but so far, ever since the outbreak, we haven't really seen any of the officials from the social development department coming forward to sort of give any form of support. The only thing that we heard is that some of the families were actually taken to social workers where they got some psychosocial support, but beyond that, there hasn't been any form of tangible support that we've seen on the ground, especially because yesterday there were some funerals that were actually taking place in this particular area. The mood was so somber, each and every second corner you would actually come across a hearse showing that, there were quite a number of people that were actually being buried yesterday here in Hammanskraal.
All right, and finally, Offense, what is currently going on with the water delivery there? There were allegations that, of course, some opportunistic groups were actually saying that the water from the tankers that was being delivered to residents was also contaminated. What is the current source of safe water for the residents of Hammanskraal at this stage?
Following the deaths, there was some sort of a trust issue, especially for the residents of Hammanskraal, because you remember the municipality could not attribute as to where this particular outbreak, the source. They could not attribute where the source actually came from. So it's not yet clear as to whether, the tankers themselves, there could be something wrong with them. But when we spoke to one of the grieving families that were burying their loved one yesterday, they were urging government to say that, where these tankers are being stored, it needs to be secured properly, so that no one can come and tamper with them or even add something that could actually be the result of this particular outbreak. But what we know as a fact is that a couple of weeks back, the city of Tshwane, which is under financial constraints, actually cut down on the tankers that are actually providing water to the citizens that are affected by this particular incident, where it used to be about between 5 to 7 days and they dropped it down to 3 days. So it's not quite clear as to whether maybe, based on the lack of water provision after it was cut down by the city, maybe the residents found alternative means of getting the water, and it might have led to this particular outbreak. And that's pure speculation as things stand, as we're still awaiting the city of Tshwane to sort of give us the exact cause of where this outbreak actually came from.
Right, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you so much to our journalist there, Offense Estimo, joining us live from Hammanskraal. And of course, as you just heard there, of course, the death toll has just risen to 23. But significantly, the number of those patients that are presenting with symptoms, this is significantly dropping lower. And as you've heard from Offense, that a lot fewer people are actually going to go and get treatment there.